All right, so we got to start all over. I was about halfway done through the video, maybe more than that, and I got a message from someone that completely derailed my thought process, and I kept repeating the same talking point. But with that said, the algorithm recommended this channel that you're seeing up on the screen right now, according to Nicole. I took a couple of her video transcripts, put them into ChatGPT, and ChatGPT ripped her a new one about how poorly designed they were. And I thought to myself, Jesus Christ. So I started scrolling through more of her videos and I found this one, which has a lot of the same talking points that I normally talk about. But what it really comes down to is humans are human batteries. And your job is stealing your life away from you because it's designed to do that. You're not supposed to enjoy life. As a poor person, you live to work, and no one wants to hear that you're living to work, but that's the reality of life for humans. And just because this is something that tickled me today with our human interactions on a daily basis. So, this isn't something that typically happens, just like the gym video that I made earlier this morning. So I went to go visit one of my acquaintances that happens to own a salon, and I met her when she opened this place, and we just, I don't know, there was just something about this 50-year-old woman that even Mello finds attractive. But anyhow, I had like 4 or 5 different things I needed to do today. Even though I'm running out of vacation time, I need to go take care of all of these things, and I can't do these things on the weekend because these places aren't open on the weekends. But when I got there, the owner introduced her new worker to me. And I looked at this girl and she was, how do I put this? When the person standing next to you is 10 times more attractive than you are, you don't stand out until you really move away from that person. So we moved back into the consulting room where she was going to jab me with a needle, and we started talking. And I mentioned about having to spend a few hours at the brake place on Saturday getting my car fixed because it needed those rotors and brake pads. And she started telling me a story about her own car. And this girl's a nurse. She has a 4 year degree in nursing from ASU. And it just started coming out of her. Like it felt like she was just dissolving in front of me. And the more that we talked at such an accelerated pace with one another, covering so many different little topics that it became like a whole life story in what seemed like 2 to 3 minutes. And when we got done, I looked at her. She had the biggest shoulders I've ever seen on a girl in person. Like her shoulders were like part of her like body that stuck out like an action hero. And she told me she got a full ride scholarship to go to ASU, which meant that she was also very intelligent. They don't give away those scholarships to just anyone. But as I was walking out, I got to the front door and the owner had already given me the winky eye because she knew that I was trying to poach one of her employees. And by poach, you guys know what I mean. And it was clear that even though we'd only spoken for, we've never met before and we've never spoken before, but in that short of a time frame, we instantly came to the conclusion that we had a instant attraction. Instant. And I was just like, that doesn't normally happen to people. You can go your whole life without meeting a person that you're instantly physically and emotionally attracted to. And as I was opening the door to leave, the last thing I said is like, I insta like you. And she looked at me like, me too. And I was like, that was very, very, very strange. Anyhow, that happened today. This morning at 6 o'clock in the morning, I got a text message from who will remain anonymous because they are directly related to the channel about her toenail. And I may have still been intoxicated, folks. I can't deny that may have happened this morning. But with that said, let's get into our main talking points from the video that you guys saw probably like 4 minutes ago. So, in it, it made me start to think that if your job is stealing your life away from you, then your job is probably not good for you. So, the talking point goes like this: discuss how jobs take more than just the hours you're clocked in. Commuting, prepping for work, and recovering from exhaustion add up to a significant chunk of your day. Highlight how this invisible labor goes unpaid and leaves little time for personal growth. This, as I've said before, is one of the main reasons that the mandate to return to the office is so significant for your employer, because they know that being able to clock in, to get up and clock in at exactly 8 a.m. in the morning, doesn't benefit them in any conceivable way. The more that you are tormented by your employer, by the corporation, by being in person getting fleeced by old Fleece Johnson, that adds to the possible increase in productivity. At least that's what they did to me when they forced me back into the office. Is that they want to see you there because they think that the more you're there, the less likely you are to be typing with your right hand and be doing something with your left hand that you normally wouldn't be able to do. But it's this, remember the word I've been using a lot lately, control. Control over your time. And how much of your day is actually yours once you subtract everything work related. Think about what it takes, the commute, the waste of time getting ready for work, showering, which you don't have to do when you work from home. You don't have to look professional when you're working at home. I wouldn't change my PJs for days at a time. My uniform for work was no shirt, no shoes, and pajama pants for months. Why? Because you don't have to waste time doing things like brushing your teeth or putting on deodorant or taking or making certain that your clothes look nice. Because if you look in the employee handbook, which is straight out of hell, right? What your hair is supposed to look like, what your nails are supposed to look like, what kind of earrings you're allowed to wear. The fact that you have to be smiling at work because they don't want their customers looking at a miserable human being. And no matter where I've worked in my entire life, I look miserable at work. And it comes back to that phrase that I've used in the last few weeks: stop coming to work like you don't want to be here. Stop acting like you don't want to be here. Act your wage. And of course, I'm going to say this because everyone knows this: no one wants to work. So when you show up at work frowning, dirty, disgusting, smelly, it's you letting them know that you don't care. And if there's one thing corporate America absolutely finds disgusting about the proletariat, is when a worker shows up at work with the "I don't care" attitude, because that hurts their bottom line. When you show up at work and you're part of the 4 out of 5 people that doesn't give a crap about being there, they know, where are they going to go to find workers that are motivated? They can't find them. Because as someone told me yesterday, if they really cared about your mood at work, if they really cared about getting a lot of productivity out of you, they would actually pay you. Instead, they pay you just enough for you to keep coming back to work. And that's not enough for most people. And that's why they look miserable at work. That's why you would rather work remotely so you can get up at the time you're supposed to be at work and then not have to spend time commuting home on your own time. That's what gets me. They want you there right up to the last second, because they've started doing this to me. They want you there right up to the last second at work. And I'm like, you know that people aren't productive, right? When you treat people like this, you can stare at them all you want, but you can't push their hands onto the keyboard any faster than they're willing to work. Or they get to a point where they just shut down. I've seen that, where it's 2 o'clock in the afternoon, and you know what people are more interested in rather than doing more work? They're interested in going home. That's what you're interested. You come back from lunch and you're no longer there. You may look at a couple of emails, you may pretend to to work, you may look productive, but when it comes down to it, you don't want to be there. And that's what your employer wants to get rid of. If they could beat you with a cane every time they felt that attitude of yours at work, we would all be purple and blue from being caned so much. But unfortunately, the best thing they can do is frighten you with layoffs or terminations. I mean, we already know that job security is a joke in America, right? We've seen hundreds, if not thousands, of people that we worked with come and go. Why? Because a lot of people will not put themselves through the torment of letting work crush your soul. Talking point number two. Explain how employers benefit from keeping workers overworked, underpaid, making them too exhausted to pursue better opportunities or plan for the future. When I worked at Insight, it was no secret that every worker there who hadn't been domesticated by the system was actively looking for other jobs. You could see them applying to submitting resumes on Indeed to other jobs, trying to get out because this is a crap job. And I even saw people printing out their resumes. The most extreme case that I saw while I worked there was a guy got hired. He was way overqualified for this job. And while he was on the clock, he was applying to jobs within the same company. And so his supervisor walks up to him, pretty much wants to grab a rolled up newspaper, wallop him upside his head, and tell him, "You're not allowed to look for another job while you're working here. You have to stay in this minimum wage job for at least 1 year before you're allowed to move to any other job." And the guy just looked at him like, "Are you stupid, man?" That's the look that I would see people give to the supervisor. And I saw it in the 6 months that I worked there. I saw him get it so many times, especially when this moment happened. When one of your best workers, your leads, walks up to you in the morning after you get there, he tells you, "This day's my last day. Friday's my last day." And from that moment, when that exceptional worker walked up to the supervisors that was counting on him to run that area, he no longer existed. The moment you told them that you had taken another job, you were no longer welcome there. And I saw them do this to so many people. And I would tell people, don't give them your 2 weeks, because this is happening. It's not something that is normal, but giving your 2 weeks is an opportunity for them to fire you before you start your new job. In fact, my Gen Zero had that happen to him at his last job. Before he started working for me, he gave 2 weeks and his employer said, "No, thank you. You're fired." They were just looking for an excuse to fire him. But again, sometimes corporations have to show such, um, what do I put this? They have to have such a long paper trail. Like they had someone that worked on the other side of the building from me. She was a sales rep. And they wanted to get rid of her from pretty much the moment that they hired her. But HR kept coming back and saying this isn't a good enough excuse for firing this person. Just because you don't like them doesn't mean we're going to let you fire them. So they had to use every cheap trick in the book. And finally, what they had to do is just lay her off because HR wouldn't let them get rid of her any other way. And so, yeah, that happens. So, all right. So, moving on to our next talking point here. So, explain how employers benefit from keeping workers. This is exactly where I got stuck the last time that I did this video because the talking points are so similar to one another. I started reading it out loud and I'm like, oh my God, I got to start the video over again. I am not going to start the video over again just because these talking points are so similar. So, point out how people are conditioned to think working harder or longer hours will lead to success. But in reality, many jobs have ceilings that trap workers in a cycle of survival. In here, I am going to insert a comment that I got earlier. It's about an Asian manufacturing facilities where the owner started raising wages for the employees in hope that the employees would want to work more. And the direct opposite thing happened to the owner of that manufacturing site. Once the workers started getting paid more, they wanted to work less, confounding the owner, thinking, why would they do that? Because there's only so much money that you can make before you want to stop working. The point of making good money is so that you work as little as humanly possible. And I've heard this at my current workplace. Millennial team, I only work as much as I have to keep my job. So when an owner like this thinks that they're going to get people to be more productive by giving them more money, it doesn't work that way. When I was taking industrial psychology, we spent an entire chapter in the book discussing how people only want to do so much work. There's a bar where you hit where you're like, my life is more important. Unfortunately, for lower tier jobs, the jobs that pay $20 and below, and I'd like to move that bar up a little higher, but that's where I'm going to put it. $20 and below is strictly survival in America right now. And workers have to work as many hours as possible. The 40-hour work week hasn't been enough money in this country in decades. But guess what? No one wants to say that out loud because then it makes the entire system sound like it's phony. That the 40-hour work week is enough, that's not true at all. And guess what? We can't afford to work for free for the corporation. Once you get to your 40 hours, most people want to say that's enough. I've got to go to another job to get paid more money for my time. I'm not going to just give it to the corporation for free just because they said they were going to pay me this much money. We can't afford to do that anymore. And corporations really don't like workers who think that way. I'm going to stop working at 5. I'm going to clock out here and I'm going to go clock in at Taco Bell or whatever your second job is because you have to do that. And this is something that I believe corporate America has acknowledged for quite a bit of time and is aware that their workers can't survive on one job. But you know what the worst part about this is? They know their workers are underpaid and they need more money, but they also don't care. So they're hoping that by holding job security over your head, that you will somehow understand that they want you to work more. But guess what? Most people are giving corporate America the middle finger because they just can't scrape by. I just got a text message from someone who said that it doesn't make any sense for people to stay in marriages because based on consumerism, it's more beneficial to have people being single and miserable, and therefore you can exploit them more. Because if you're in a relationship, now you've got another person that's not contributing to society through their labor. Well, if you abolish marriage and abolish people being able to financially rely on one another, what you're doing is you're creating another desperation worker. So, moving on to my final talking point. Point out how people are conditioned to think that working harder, longer hours will lead to success, but in reality, many jobs have a ceiling that trap workers in a cycle of survival. When was the last time you felt like your hard work actually moved you forward in life? Well, I think I reread that one too, but when was the last time you felt your hard work actually moved you forward in life? At no point have I felt that work was working for me. Throughout my entire working life, I've felt that work was a joke. And it always has been a joke for most of us. Unless you're the owner and you're benefiting from exploiting your workers to the nth degree, for the average worker, work isn't worth it. You can work your 40-hour work week for your 4 weeks every month, and at the end of the month, you're going to be negative. Why? Because you need that second job. You absolutely have to have that second job, especially when an unexpected expense comes up. Because today, while I was talking to this nurse at the salon, there's one thing that really stood out about my whole conversation is that her Promobile was at the end. She took it to Big O Tires. They told her there was nothing they could do. She's had multiple transmissions in the vehicle. But at the end of the day, she's probably going to go out there and try to start her Promobile, and it's not going to start. And she acknowledged the fact that she should have bought a new one a long time ago. But guess what? It's not in the budget. Most things aren't in the budget for the proletariat. Having a reliable piece of a car isn't something that you can really afford. It's either that or take the bus. And you have to remember this person's a nurse who works in a hospital full time. And even that nurse has to take a side gig because she needs money to buy a new Promobile. This is the twisted society that we live in. And it's not going to get any better because corporations only want you for one thing. They want you to burn out and then replace you because it's not a byproduct. Burnout is built right into the system. That's why I started the video with human batteries. Human batteries run out of juice. Human batteries get their souls crushed. Human batteries know that the 40-hour work week is a joke. And we've known this for a long time, but somehow I think that a lot of us try to convince ourselves that somehow we just have to get over the next bump, the next hill, the next little mountain. That safety is right around the corner. We just can't see it yet. But I'm here on this channel to tell you stop lying to yourself.